Hey everybody, welcome to the July edition of Dinner with the Devs with Schell Games. This is the Game Trends edition, so we're going to talk everything about new technology in games, some of the big themes in the workplace in games, the July edition of Dinner with the Devs with Schell Games. DLC, this everything is in between. Game Trends, especially your questions as well. So we're going to talk, feel free to put your questions in the live chat. We'll introduce our chat moderator in a second. Workplace in before we get July started, I can Dinner with the Devs with Schell Games. DLC, everything in between. Game Trends, especially your questions as well. So we're going to talk, feel free to put your questions in the live chat. We'll introduce our chat moderator in a second. Workplace in before we get July started, I can Dinner with the Devs with Schell Games. Everything in between. Game Trends, especially your chat moderators are everything around Jill. So feel free to say hi to her as our chat moderator. Sure, you're kind and for putting your questions started. Dinner with the Devs with Schell Games. So this is especially your chat moderators are everything fascinating, exciting. Feel free to say hi to her as our chat moderator. Sure, you're kind and take a look at it. You're putting your questions started. Dinner with the Devs. So this is especially your chat moderators are everything fascinating, exciting. Feel free to say hi to her as our chat moderator. Sure, you're kind and take a look at it. You're putting your questions started. Dinner with the Devs. So this is especially your chat moderators feel fascinating, exciting. Feel free to say hi to her as our chat moderator. Sure, you're kind and take a look at it. You're putting your questions started. Dinner with the Devs. So this is especially your chat moderators feel fascinating, exciting. Feel free to say hi to her as our chat moderator. Sure, you're kind and take a look at it. You're putting your questions started. Dinner with the Devs. So this is especially your chat moderators feel fascinating, exciting. Feel free to say hi to her as our chat moderator. Sure, you're kind and take a look at it. You're putting your questions started. Dinner with the Devs. So this is especially your chat moderators feel fascinating, exciting. Feel free to say hi to her as our chat moderator. Sure, you're kind and take a look at it. You're putting your questions started. Dinner with the Devs. So this is especially your chat moderators feel fascinating, exciting. Feel free to say hi to her as our chat moderator. Sure, you're kind and take a look at it. You're putting your questions started. Dinner with the Devs. So this is especially your chat moderators feel fascinating, exciting. Feel free to say hi to her as our chat moderator. Sure, you're kind and take a look at it. You're putting your questions started.
Sequel that seems like that should have just been like DLC at half the price, but I think it has to come down to if you can afford the free DLC or kind of what your end goal is with DLC. But
do you have like, I have like a bipolar response to this because like I have the part of me that's a consumer and like want more free games all the time, and then the part of me is like a game dev who's like I want a job, and then to be paid. Like, do you feel like you have that, or are they like reconciled? Do you kind of have like a more centralized view of it?
I have a bigger issue with if DLC is like we didn't finish it and we're gonna like keep tacking chapters based on popularity.
Yeah.
Like I would rather have like it's like with the Assassin's Creeds. I feel like they did a good job where like you have a main game that completes an arc, and then you have these little tiny sub arcs. So like you don't feel like you missed out if you skip the DLC. The games where I feel like they're like, just kidding, here's the real finale, but you have to shell out $10. That to me feels cheap.
Yeah, there's some half and half, like Payday, and I know there's others, but like they'll do free, paid, free, paid. So even if you don't pay any more money, you still get like content updates every 6 months, like every year. But then the people who pay get an extra one. Like that always seems a little charming, where they sort of mix and match.
Sometimes I feel bad with free DLC where like I won't play, like I'll just complete the main quest, so I feel bad that there's DLC because I'm not going to play it, and I know time went against developing it. So.
You play Hollow Knight?
No.
I loved Hollow Knight, And then like as soon as I finished it, DLC came out. I was like, I'm not gonna play through it again to just see that. But like I really want to, but yeah, like I'm gonna wait till there's more.
See, the thing is, like, the DLC also wasn't even marketed that well. Like, I recently started playing Hollow Knight. I found out yesterday that
Yeah,
there was
while
free
you're
DLC.
playing it,
Like while I'm playing, like, there's DLC.
Yeah.
Why? I thought that this game already feels like it's complete. So I was very curious to see that they added DLC on top of it, which is sort of like, as a consumer, it's like, oh yeah, I would love more content, but there's also games that I'm like, I don't really feel like there should be this extra content. Like, Spider-Man is another good example where everybody's been talking about how the DLC feels incomplete. Like, there have been a lot of bugs and stuff, and it only really was worth buying when you got all 3 of the DLC packs together, because it was like, and apparently it was an entire narrative arc. I didn't play the DLC, I played the main game, and I was perfectly satisfied with all the content in the main game.
They did free too, didn't they? Though? So I think Spider-Man had like cosmetic updates for free.
They had
like,
all the new costumes were free, which is great. I love the free cosmetic model that Spider-Man had, and then they had the extra missions and extra narrative. But just from a narrative standpoint, I didn't feel like that was necessary, and I think the way that it closed off the arc of Peter Parker in this game was better than trying to throw in extra content and trying to throw stuff at a wall.
Yeah.
See what sticks.
Now I know one thing that I saw in just some of the research that we've been doing in terms of DLC and when to do it. I thought it was interesting, the perspective of how angry like gamers got from devs putting DLC packages when games are still in early access in Steam. I thought that that was interesting. That because early access, in the sense, means that the game is incomplete. So, how would you justify, or what's the justification of adding like a free or even paid DLC to a game that's in early access?
I feel like there's like a contextual barrier here, because it's like, what is the circumstances surrounding this DLC? Do you feel that the game, like, is this early access to show that the game is done, but you're bug fixing and such?
Right.
Or are you looking to add more content later? In that case, why are you forcing these early access players to pay more money for what should essentially be a patch or an update?
Right. And I'm trying to remember, because there were 2 main cases where people flipped out.
Ark was one, right? I think
Ark, yeah. And then maybe, was it DayZ that did?
No, or maybe was it Daisy? No, because Daisy I don't think ever came out. I think
Daisy's
So
still in that limbo.
It's still in that limbo, okay. But Ark for sure.
Ark was a big and like
Yeah.
Ark's deal was that it was really buggy and unfinished, and then they charged with DLC on top of it. But I feel like the issue in that case isn't like I don't think anyone think anyone else buys games in early access and it's like feels different from buying a game normally.
Okay.
If I buy an early access game, I'm buying a game, and if I buy a normal game, it's like the same deal. And
Oh,
then
interesting.
you get an update. Like all the games that I play get updates periodically. Like it's not really a weird rare thing. But the issue is usually more like the game is super broken, and then they charge you for something. And like they spent their time working on this extra thing instead of fixing it. Like even if the game is launched but it's broken.
Right, that must be
If
infuriating.
they release
to
DLC,
consumers.
that's But I don't think it doesn't. People that see it from the outside and like that report on it or post on Reddit or whatever, they will phrase it as like it's still in early access.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure if it's what they're actually saying because there's games I can't think of any good examples. Maybe Don't Starve, but like I know there are games that have released DLC when they're in early access and it's been like awesome.
Okay.
Because the game itself is solid and you're fine with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can't think of any. But I know it's happening.
Okay.
Trust me.
So if you guys can think of any examples, please put it in the live chat so we can, I guess, remember. Yeah, none of it is coming to mind. So you said something interesting about getting, whenever you're buying games and you're getting them, getting updates periodically, there's that, I guess, growing trend or growing understanding that games aren't going to just be one complete package, right? You're going to have that continual live update support or as the insiders call it games as a service, right? It's no longer just a product, but it's ongoing. So I'd like to know your thoughts about that.
It's partially sad. I mean, so there's the film analogy of like, we'll fix it in post, which means like your filmmaking's been sloppy, so you'll fix it in post-production.
Yeah.
And now there's like a trend in the game industry where devs will joke and say like, we'll just day one patch it. And like, so they know that they're shipping something semi-broken to get through certification to launch the game. And then they'll just do like a 5 gig day one patch to fix like all the bugs. So to me, that you couldn't get away with that because like when you bought a cartridge, it had to work. So like it's unfortunate that because of the digital age that that side of the spectrum that people can literally ship something broken and hope that they can just patch it day one.
Do you think, I guess, like, what do you consider games as a service? Like, do you have to buy the initial game for a fee and then pay a subscription? Or if you buy the initial game and then get patches to fix it, is that games as a service?
No, well, so that like as an open-ended thing, like because I think it can help with if there's critical bugs or like the latest the game that's like the Castlevania knockoff, Bloodstained.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was like broken on Switch, and they're using patches to fix it on Switch. So like that's cool because otherwise you would have just bought a broken port.
But do you see, like, is No Man's Sky a games as a service situation, or is that just a broken launch?
Oh, where they're adding features?
Yeah, but you don't pay for it. You just buy it and then it's yours, but it's broken, right? And they have to fix it after the fact.
Yeah, so if you're not paying for it, I still think it's games as service if they're updating it through its lifespan.
I mean, most of the games I think I've liked over the past maybe 4 or 5 years that were like mind blowing, like stuff like Rust and Subnautica, were that, right? And Subnautica was like a broken mess when it launched. It still has bugs, but like it was really broken. But it was like so unique, and that I got it out and it was cheap. That didn't matter, and I'm glad I got the broken version that they would eventually fix. And like, there's so many examples like Oxygen Not Included and Rust, and like there's tons of like MOBA and stuff like that, where they are essentially games as a service, but I'm not paying a fee, and like that's for at least that's like my personal line, is when I have to pay money and then it's broken. But then I would just stop paying, right? I wouldn't subscribe or get like a season's pass or whatever.
I guess it's the intent behind the brokenness, like because I think of like a Fallout 76. Like, why did it ship so broken? So like, if you were learning the ropes or like making like bootstrapping a game, like I would forgive some of the bugs. But if you were like a giant machine, and you're just like whatever.
And it's like, why was this initial deadline set in the first place? I figure there's a large like
swimming pool of money.
the swimming pool of money that's just ready to grab. Like that's why so many games release all in November at the same time. It's that Christmas season. You want to make sure that people are buying games at that point because that's when all the money starts flowing in. But it's also like, organizationally, how much of a mess was that the game ended up being broken in the first place? I know there's a lot of stuff that goes into it. Making a game is hard, especially as technology continues to grow, and it makes hitting these deadlines even harder and harder. So I give some games like a bit of slack for there's a few broken things. That's okay. I'm sure they were on a tight schedule.
Yeah. It's weird too, like that example of 76 where like they had like a no clip special that was like the documentary of them making that game, but it was more of like they covered most of Bethesda. And like when I was a kid, when I was like 14, they were like 40 dudes packaging games by hand to mail stuff out. So like thinking about since that time and like the 10 years or whatever since they had their first really big hit, they ballooned into a huge industry trying to ship like AAA products. And it's like seeing the more human side of it of like, oh my God, like we're about 100 people now. What if we balloon into like 1,600 people? And then we had to ship it for like, it's such a huge, like terrifying thing, right? And it's more understandable to have a deadline and then meet it sort of in a tripping, halting way, right? Because it's so much logistics to manage. Yeah, spooky, very scary.
And anything that has like a server component,
forget it.
Yeah, because you never know. And I think coming from mobile gaming, where like you have to test like X amount of users hitting the server all at once, like you're gonna hit those bugs. But again, like did you experience the bugs and you're gonna fix them like up front, or did you sweep it under the rug and try to be like, whatever, like, we know we have to hit Q3 to look good in our financials, and we're just gonna, we know people will buy it anyways because of the name, and, you know, they can live with a buggy game for 3 months.
I mean, but I mean, now I use the worst example, right? No Man's Sky, the absolute worst launch you can have, which like, that didn't really matter. They sold really well, and then they made it good, and now everyone likes them. And it's like their bad stigma is essentially gone. People like No Man's Sky, and the subreddit's positive, and you know the community would probably buy an update if they had like a sequel. I don't think that they maintain sort of the stigma that initially was created by that. So for some games, economically, it just works out to ship in like a massively broken state. It feels bad, but you know it's not like the people who are buying it are incentivizing them not to do that again, right?
That's true. So.
Oh, it's just a great example of like the DLC engine and the shipping buggy. Like I always, for a giant company, I give Ubisoft so much credit because I feel like they do switch gears quickly, and like to give Assassin's Creed a break to refresh it, and now the franchise is even better. They have DLC that is good. You don't need it. Like I feel like they do a great job of responding to, like, they'd exhausted the franchise. They gave it a year off. They made it even better, and I'm sure their financials are just fine.
I think they're doing okay.
Yeah.
So, do you think that as the digital age continues, you know, whenever you look at the reports that you know digital games and stuff are surpassing or I think surpassing now the physical in terms of revenue. Do you foresee, what do you see in the future of games as a service? Do you think that games are going to continue to ship, like you said, buggy and kind of have that, not lazy, but kind of like you're saying, well, I wonder if they had a deadline that they just had to hit and we'll just patch day one? Or do you think that this is a process that companies and studios will continue to refine to make that, games as a service model into, like you were saying before, something subscription based that you're, paying for the value and paying for the story of that game?
It might be worth splitting what we were talking about earlier.
Sure.
But like, the games as a service is like FIFA, World of Warcraft.
Yep.
Like, or maybe even something lighter like a Dota.
Destiny.
Yeah, Destiny.
Yeah,
Right?
Destiny, yeah.
But like where you buy it and then you continuously put money into it in some way, like microtransactions or a subscription or whatever. And then there's like early access, which has a lot of the same issues, but it's like you buy it once and you get what you pay for. And like if it's good, great. If it's bad, just because like games as a service has other issues that are like microtransactions related, right? That early access doesn't. But yeah, early access is exciting for the future for me because like the stuff that I've liked from early access is like things that would have never come out 10 years ago, right? I mean, 5 years ago.
Right.
Because like they would have started, not had any money, too weird and broken, and they just collapsed. And now they can be broken, but like sell their potential to like consumers way early, like investor consumers, and then they can play the broken one, and then like uplift this broken game to like a good, awesome state where it's like this brand new thing, right? Like,
And then it can have its actual use.
yeah, and that can be this like beautiful, like Barotrauma is probably the most recent example of like this beautiful, weird game that you could have never seen released like 5 years ago, like Space or Space Station 13 or whatever it was based off of. It's awful, and it's like this terrible broken mess because they didn't have any income, right? Like the difference between then and now is so crazy.
Hades is another really good early access model.
Which one?
Hades.
Hades,
The
okay.
Supergiant game.
Yeah.
Because this is their first time. They usually just send it out once they're done, like after they've gone through all their polish and stuff. They've never had problems with broken games before, but they knew that this one in particular would require a lot of balancing and just a lot of play testing before they could properly launch it. So they've been doing early access on the Epic Game Store to be able to do that. I watch the Supergiant Discord like all the time. I'm all over that.
Okay.
Haven't actually been a part of the early access yet, but they definitely have a good model for having people. It's sort of like what we do with Until You Fall, just on a much larger scale because they have such a they have so many more people and they're already in early access. We're just on the closed alpha for now.
Sure.
But yeah, they used early access for mostly patches like, is this weapon broken? If so, fix it. Some other like minor animation problems that they might have had, like random bugs that they couldn't catch because they were so used to playing the game in the vacuum of their studio.
Yeah. There's like a bunch of that where like I love I forget the name, frictional games, the Amnesia people, Dark Descent. Like I love their games, right? Like Soma was probably my favorite game that I've played, period, right? But then reading about them making that, where like their studio was massively depressed. They had a huge morale issue because you're making a depressing game about cynical, dark stuff for like 4 years that no one knows about, and you get no positive feedback ever. It's just the internal criticism of your own product. And like if you're in early access, you like release this thing that's broken and weird, and everyone's like, wow, and they get excited, and you see it immediately, and you get feedback what's good and bad. And like
that's true.
The sort of opening up the studio for some games might be really beneficial. I don't think they could do it because of their like the surprising content of their games requires that it has to be secret. But yeah, like there's massive benefits to not being in a vacuum, like you said.
That was the nice thing with episodic gaming too, was you could get like the fan reaction per
Course
episode.
correct.
Yeah, you could also course correct, but also see like, oh, they really did like that part, and so it got you amped up towards the finale.
Very cool. So I guess we can kind of go into a comment about, or question about microtransactions, loot boxes, pay to win. So whenever you, like you were saying, Tyler, if we do take that other branch of games as a service and seeing those type of issues with microtransactions, loot boxes, pay the
Surprise
win.
mechanics.
Surprise mechanics, you're right. First, I liked what he talked about or mentioned with paid games versus free games. And so I guess let's kind of look at the question, in that two formats. So games as a service, but paid games versus free games and microtransactions, loot boxes. What feels better? What feels worse? Or what could those how could we as a game industry kind of improve that adoption, if you even want it? There's some opinion shared before this stream, but I wanted to bring it back because it was some pretty lively discussion.
Yeah, I mean, like we said earlier, like we're developers, so we see like how much it costs to make a game, and we have that unique perspective. But like, as a consumer, I've never played a game where I could buy something separately and been like, wow, this is a great addition, right? Like I've never had that feeling. It's always like, that was cool, I guess. And then I buy it, or like I see other people buy it, right? Like it never, there has to be one, right? Like
Personally, I don't
good
like
experience
buying DLC ever.
I've never done an in-app purchase.
I played
Listen, my wallet is thin enough, so having to pay extra
like
money.
MMOs. Like I played Eve a while ago, and I stopped playing because I had to pay for it. Like, there has to be one good experience, right?
If you guys have had a good experience with microtransactions or loot boxes, please put it in the live chat so we can and tell us about your experience.
So who has the unique experience?
Yeah.
Who has that one
I
experience?
still monthly will download like a mobile game just to be like, maybe the industry's changed a little, and I play and like you get through the fatui and then the character pops up like, if you bought 10 gems, and I'm like, like uninstall.
And that's a whole psychological thing. Like it's supposed to stimulate your brain, so you're like, oh, well now I want to play it later, and it's supposed to sort of build up an addiction.
I've been in meetings where that is what we talk about. Like, how many times do we hit them per month, and then how much do we make the box jiggle so it gets their endorphins going?
Like it's all about how are we gonna get the dopamine, the like optimal dopamine flow in the brain, and I'm like. It's kind of why I steer clear of mobile games. So it's like they're just trying to mess with my head the whole time.
And then you A/B test, like maybe we could get away with like $5 for the pack, or maybe so like there's figuring like how much will they open their wallets?
Do people like whenever I play games like that, like when that happens to me, even if I don't buy the thing, or even if the game lets me say no and continue, just the fact that it happens makes me feel like games are exciting. Like, oh yeah, this is fun. As soon as it happens, I feel worse, and I like stop enjoying the game. And I'm consumed with thinking about that, but like they just want my money, and like I've experienced so much, like.
But also for free games, how else are you making money without having those transactions?
Right.
It's so hard to keep in mind, like when I'm playing a game for free.
Advertise this true.
Yeah, but you hate that, right? Like when the one the Yeti goes downhill, It might just be Yeti Mountain. It's a great mobile game where you just like skiing on the Yeti.
But then you have to watch an ad.
Yeah, well, some dude in the game is like trying to sell you something, and he hit his speech bubble, and the ad is in the bubble, right? But like, I hate it, and I'm playing their thing for free, right? Like, I should feel the same thing I feel in the store when they're like $20, please, but I don't. I feel like worse.
But also, what about console and PC titles that don't have advertisements? Like,
But are free.
Fortnite's free to play.
Yeah,
and
Warframe.
Warframe. What other ones?
When I see someone wearing like glittering Viking horns and things that are obviously paid for, I get the same feeling as when I see like a Mountain Dew ad come up, right? It's like that same, like I want to tune it out and like just do the other thing. I was so pure before, right? It's like, I don't know. It might have built up because I've played games so long now at this point where like I have a revulsion to it. But
I play games as an experience and not a service, so I have a hard
Right.
time. Once I know that those mechanics are in, I know that they're thinking of the game as a core loop and not an experience.
Right.
So they're just
Gotcha.
how long do you do the thing to generate the money to then generate the next thing to.
it would be a great game jam. It's whenever possible. Like if you could like get the source code for a game that's a beautiful work of art, like Journey, and the game jam is you have to add micro and ads to it. And everyone has to pick their own game, like their own beautiful game. Like it takes so much. And
You're in the desert and there's a Poland Spring ad.
Yeah.
Nintendo's doing that right now with all their franchises.
Yeah, there's a big
Dr.
wall.
Mario.
You have to pay to get through, or you have to wait collect a certain amount of gems, or you pay to get through.
The Last of Us, just with like Fatui and pay to win. Like,
Yeah. Or you can only speak in Journey. You can only do the speech thing if you pay money, and it's $5 every time.
Do have some comments. Warren, good to see you again, Warren. He is an avid watcher. He says, I get it's important to polish off the rough edges about really seeing kind of buggy games or games as a service, about rolling feedback into the game experience, but it's nervous about audience testing watering down a strong vision. He often thinks about GRRM's quote, George R. R. Martin's quote, art is not a democracy. So that's interesting.
Yeah. There's that saying where like a camel's a horse designed by a committee. Right? Like, you always get a less specialized product.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I don't know.
See, that always reminds me of the what's his face, Ford. Whatever people, he's like, well, if I asked people, what they wanted, they would have asked for a faster horse, right? So
It might not be like an issue of like I think I've been playing some Foxhole. It's like this World War I, II-ish simulator, but the community for that game is kind of vicious. Like every thread on any forum will be like, these devs are idiots, and they're like really angry at the devs.
Oh my God.
But the devs still solicit for they like put a thread like, hey, what do you guys think about this? Tell us your thoughts. They get vitriolic responses, but then they're able to sort of like, they have a vision for the game, and they take the good they see, but they're able to like understand and discard the bad. And it seems like their vision for the game hasn't been colored by the players, and like they can identify mistakes because like you're not, no matter how strong your vision is, everybody's weird and has mistakes somehow, right? Like you're never gonna make a perfect thing. So it seems necessary, and it's more like about having the discipline and determination not to like let your vision get dented by people.
You see, it's like writing your first novel. You hand it off to someone, and what you don't want them to just say that it's like the best thing they've ever read, because you want to improve.
Yeah.
You want to make your product better than like the best product could possibly be, right? And that's why feedback is so helpful, I think, regardless of the kind of game you're making. Yes, it's important to stay in that vision, but if that vision is sort of alienating the audience you're trying to target, I think that's when it becomes an issue, and you need to reassess. But yeah, there are ways to take feedback without compromising your vision. Like that's like this is sort of like a it's not entirely black and white. Like I get this piece of feedback, now I have to completely change the vision of the game.
my idea sucks.
Yeah, that's like that would be like how we end. Like that's how Until You Fall would end up as a battle royale.
Yeah,
Not wrong. Yeah.
a good example might be like Stanley Powerful. It's really weird, right? And he released the initial game as like a source mod, right? It wasn't
Yeah.
its own standalone thing.
It was
But, like,
originally like a
yeah.
series mod.
and I know some people who hate it, right? Like that hated that game. It was just walking simulator. But like, if you have a strong, if your game is a niche game with a strong specialty vision and not like a general appeal, you have to look for the people who like it and see like what they like about it. And then if you want feedback, you have to like target them and work for them instead of working for the people who hate it. Like, yeah.
Sword Slash, he's back, and we asked for what type of game has a good, loot box or good micro transaction experience, and he said Overwatch does it best in his opinion. The cosmetic upgrades and loot boxes that you could still earn in game, and is that because what I thought about the microtransactions or the loot boxes, as long as they're not integral to the gameplay, I think that they're fine. But I don't know if that's the same of what you're talking about in Overwatch. Does that, or if that's different?
I think he means something entirely different because
Okay.
you could still play Overwatch without those cosmetics.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
It's not like
Which then I would like that.
right. It's not like Battlefield Front 2 where it's like I want to play as Darth Vader. Now I have to grind 40 hours to get to Darth Vader, or just pay however much it costs at launch
Yeah.
to get that.
I mean, there was even worse examples like 2010-ish, where there's tons of like, I can't remember the names now, like Hardline. There was tons of shooters that were just
Hardline?
good. Might be Hardline, or it's like a shooter, sci-fi. It's pretty good. The mechanics are really solid. If you want a gun that's usable, you gotta pay.
Yeah.
They put you in the world and give you like a crappy gun that can't kill people. And some guy runs by and one-shots you. And then when you die, what you see is like, here's the gun he killed you with. Isn't it good? Like, it feels so infuriating. And like, those games kind of filtered out because they were like too aggressive in their micro, but yeah.
I can see how that would feel pretty bad.
Compared to then, Overwatch is like way, like so many steps back, right? Where you just get a dice roll. So the loot boxes you get, they don't determine what you get. It's more random. But they're all cosmetic, right? You can unlock guns in Overwatch. I haven't played since beta, so it's been like...
I haven't played at all.
Oh, at all?
Yeah, I haven't played either. So
I don't play Overwatch now.
There were
Watch the character videos.
Yeah, there were
Pretty much.
They're beautiful.
the gameplay.
Yeah.
Yeah, there were stickers in crates when I did beta, so sorry if I'm super wrong. There were like stickers in crates, and then there was some other cosmetic thing in crates you can get. I don't remember what the stickers did or why they were important, but you couldn't buy specific items. You could only get crates. And I don't think when I played the beta you could even buy crates. I think you just got them for playing matches, and then whatever you got, you just had to deal with. But there's also the good complaint of like, I play a ton of Dota, so all my analogies will be Dota to you. But like, in Dota they're all cosmetic, right? But if you're trying to shoot someone with like a spell and you have like, you're dead, like that fast, them having a silhouette that's slightly more broken means you die. And if they're a single pink object, they die, right? So, like, I don't really care about this because I play it more casually, but like, people will buy items for camouflage in the game, or they'll buy a pet, which is fully cosmetic, does nothing, except it's a moving dog that's very cute. But when you see a dog moving, for a second you're like, oh, no, it's not, and you can't attack it. So it's just to distract you. So there's a joke where like if you have a projectile that hits someone and kills them, and you can buy a cosmetic to make it more beautiful and bright and glowing and amazing, it's like pay to lose, because you want to hit someone with it, and they see it coming, and you're like, oh, step out of the way, because it's all bright now. And it's like there are gameplay repercussions to even cosmetic stuff like Overwatch, right? Because like they look different. Therefore, if they're hiding in a corner with a sniper rifle, they're either more visible or less visible. They're not going to be equal. But you have to be so good at the game for that to matter, right? Where like, yeah, I'm not good enough for it.
Like sorry.
Oh, the interesting thing for like, I was thinking of a title where they didn't do it and did it, and it drastically changed how it felt, was NBA Playground 1 and 2. It was basically NBA Jam redone.
Okay.
The second one was purchased and published by 2K Sports. And it is just NBA Jam where you like unlock legends and you play in like, it's the like seaside playground in like different courts. The second one, they made that all like behind the paywall, like to get the characters and different stuff. And I suddenly was like, I want nothing to do with, like, first I was like, oh, I might buy the game, it seems interesting. I'm like, nope, I want nothing to do with it.
I mean, 2K's also been doing that with their, they've been pretty aggressive with that, with their actual titles. Like, every new 2K that's come out, it feels like there's even more to pay. Like, your progression, if you're doing like your My Career mode, is incredibly slow, and the only way to really make good progress without playing like 100 hours is to pay for the virtual currency that you need to use to pay for other skills.
Wow.
Which, that's not even the narrowly access game, but that, so I've heard with that franchise, like, people are so annoyed because there's like fundamental basketball related bugs, but they keep adding like story mode, and now there's like an in-game shop where you can buy your gear, and they're like, just fix the basketball bugs. Like, I don't.
And they
want...
bring on like the worst voice actors ever too, and their stories are just. it's
the DLC like
you
growth
can
is
tell.
getting bigger, but the core thing is like
you can just tell like the corporate parasite feeding into their game design, and it's like, oh, it's disgusting.
Oh man. So Sword Slash says, yeah. So are the microtransactions in Fortnite and Warframe and games like that kind of excused because the game is free? So you don't have to face that, that pain of paying, so you get the game for free, but then, you get, either skins or loot boxes, but you're like, hey, well, the game was free anyway.
I have another really ambivalent response.
Sure.
Like, them doing that is morally good, right? Like, I'm totally fine with the way they do micro. I think it's like, that's fine. It's a free game. It's given you as a gift, and if you want to put money into it, you can. You don't have to.
And then ends up the funding for the game.
Also, I stopped playing because of that. Where like I spent like a week trying to get a gun. I bought a gun that was really expensive in in-game money, and it was nerfed immediately to garbage. And all my friends bought guns and I couldn't play with them because mine sucked. So I just uninstalled. So it's like I'm fine with the fact that they have it, but if they didn't have it, I'd probably still be playing. And then they probably still would be a studio because they made all their money, right? So like, very mixed feelings. It seems like a cool game, but like it totally ruined it.
And from their own experiment, Warframe was paid first. It didn't do well, and they retread.
Right.
I thought of like that and Evolve. There were a number of those type of shooters where they were paid. They were very proud of it.
Oh, Evolve went free. I totally forgot.
Evolve
Yeah.
went free?
Yeah.
Its death rattle was going free. It was
But a
very
lot of
short.
studios do that, where they'll be like, "It's going to be amazing." We're like, and then once they see that they don't have the retention and the user base, they quickly go free.
So the best story about that is like Payday 2. I think Starbreeze, Overkill makes Payday, and Starbreeze owned the IP.
Yes.
And then Payday 2 came out, and they had loot crates, and it was very micro. It took forever to get anything. And then like Overkill clawed their way out of the publisher and bought the IP back. And as soon as they owned it, they just made all the crates free. They just opened out for free, and like they pulled all the micros, or most of it. There's still some in, but like they had sort of the same thing, but more as like an independence stake, and less as like a dying franchise trying to escape its coffin.
Then they made The Walking Dead and shut down. So they should have charged
Oh yeah.
Overkill. They made that last Walking Dead game that it only came out for PC. They canceled the ports.
Oh.
It became a fire
Who's
sale.
them?
Yeah, it was Starbreeze and Overkill.
Who runs? I guess does Overkill still run Payday separately, and then Starbreeze is its own thing or gone?
I don't know which is. I forget how they're weirdly entwined, but yeah, they.
Yeah.
They're
I mean,
going.
Payday still exists. I don't know how, but
It's shocking.
Yeah.
It really is.
So
it's a good game. I like Payday.
Becky says, hi Becky, good to see you. Cosmetic transactions are my weakness. If I hear a game is free, I just think, oh no, the old free game on Steam, ZMR, was very much pay to not look like a noob and pay to win.
What was it? CMR.
ZMR.
Familiar. Yeah. It's probably something really obvious that we're all listening to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always like a lot of games that I played, like TFT. There's others like Killing Floor is probably the worst example, where they have like an art style or like an art guide that's on like a slight slope, and then when they go microtransaction cosmetics, they just pour like grease on it. Because like TF2 before was like 1950s, it had a beautiful art style. It was like hand painted textures, sort of. It looked great, right? And now it's like guys around with Christmas lights shooting lasers, and they have like angel wings, and then they're dropping feathers and make chicken sounds. Like it's just
that's really
Killing Floors maybe their third Christmas, because every year they would update. They were like, okay, Killing Floor zombies, just zombies. And then next year, Killing Floor Christmas zombies. So it's like a zombie with like Santa's beard and a hat on, right? Like, it's cute, it's Christmas. And they kept adding things to be exciting. So like the third year was Portal 2 Space Sci-Fi, Gingerbread. So there's something else. Oh, it was like Carnival Gingerbread in Space, Cyber Portal 2, Christmas. Right, so like the zombies were like
that sounds amazing.
It's a gingerbread man with a cyborg eye on a spaceship, but he's also a zombie trying to eat you, and GLaDOS is involved or something. Like it went so off the rails because you have to keep thinking new stuff.
I'm trying to process
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
Like, oh my god.
Gingerbread man cyborg zombie.
Yeah, I would love if someone made an image of the slope of Payday's art style and it goes into like crazy land.
I thought this was Killing Floor.
Or Killing.
Yeah.
Payday 2, Gingerbread.
The only game I love with cosmetic DLC is weirdly Crossy Road, because they had this very strict voxel art style, and then it got so popular that they got Disney licenses, so there's like a Crossy Road version. And the game does not require it at all, it is just a visual swap.
Yeah,
But
that's
they're
cool.
so endearing, and it's just if you want it, and if not, the base characters are so awesome.
But you get characters for free, but at a slow rate, right?
Mhm. Yeah, so it is totally just, and it's not even like a pay to win. It is purely just and it was a massive runaway hit because it never felt predatory. And it's just
I never felt like it was
endearing.
grabbing at my
Yep.
wallet
Yeah.
ever.
And it fits their little world. So like again, there's not that slope in quality. Like
Yeah.
Right.
Interesting. So, whenever you talk about these games, we're looking at both. Well, mostly a lot of what we've been talking have been just your big indie studios, right? So, what about how AAA companies work with indies? Kwame says that Payday 2 was nuts.
Thank you, Kwame.
Thanks, Kwame.
I still play it. It's still good.
But to indies and AAA, Sword Slash had a question. Should AAA companies hire indie developers to work on games, or should they work on smaller indie type projects instead of the huge genre-defining, tech-pushing games?
all of it. I still love, so again,
Do it.
Ubisoft created the UbiArt engine that briefly let them do Rayman games.
Yeah.
They did
Warcraft mobile.
what was the World War I game?
This Warplane?
No,
No.
it was
Let's Stole that. I know what you're talking about, right?
it's like an adventure game. You're
Oh my God.
you're a soldier
What's the
with
name?
your dog.
The name's in French, right? So that
Yeah.
the translation is marketplace. I know what you're talking about.
So it's an amazing game, and it is, so you're going through the horrors of war,
If you
but
know
not
the name of the
through
game,
fighting.
put it-
Yeah.
It is through just like enduring it, but it is from this amazing, like art. It looks like 2D,
Yeah.
like hand drawn art.
And it's like comic book outlines and stuff. Right?
Yeah,
Right.
but again, it was AAA. They were able to like offshoot, create this engine, and probably like for some devs while they have downtime, just shoot out these awesome games.
Yeah, like they were probably between projects at the time.
Mhm.
It's like, let's do something.
It was the Rayman Origins and Legends. That one. There was another franchise that they used the same engine for, right? I can't remember the name.
Mhm.
Was it? No, Child of Light was not a franchise. But did they use the same engine for Child of Light? It's got similar aesthetics. Its 2D aesthetic is similar to the Rayman games, but it also uses a lot of like 3D entities to kind of distinguish it.
I'm trying to think like, Subnautica is sort of an example of, I'm trying to think of instances of large companies, like Unknown Worlds isn't large, but when they made Subnautica, it was like they made Natural Selection 2. Obviously a big game, like
Mhm.
nearly AAA quality, but the studio was a very small amount of people. And then Subnautica seemed smaller in scale when they made it. Same with like Rust is the same deal where like, it was Gary from Gary's Mod, they had made Gary's Mod made money, and they were working on like I think it was like a Hitman game, like Hitman, like the bald guy.
Yeah.
And they were making an open world Hitman game, hence the bald character. And then Ubisoft canceled the experiment or something. This was like I'm remembering this from 5 years ago, right? So it might be flimsy, but someone.
Square Enix own Hitman?
Yeah, whoever on the IP, but they took the assets after it was canceled, and they were all sad. And the boss went on vacation or something. Gary went on vacation, and the guy who made Rust just made it with the assets they had for Hitman. Just put on Steam and was like, whatever. And then it blew up while they were on vacation. And like they came back to like 20,000 users or something, and then they had to grapple this huge IP they created for it. It was sort of an accident. Like other examples. Does chat have examples of like big companies making indie-sized projects, successful or not? Right.
I mean,
Well,
EA did Unravel, which seemed like a more
Unravel was-
intimate game than EA would ever put out.
Right. It was so against EA that I was like, this is an EA game?
Large. Yeah.
Where are there are no microtransactions? What?
So Warren says Valiant Hearts.
Yes.
Valiant
Yeah.
Hearts.
Yes,
That's what
thank
it
you.
is.
There
It's
we go.
amazing.
Thank you.
Everyone should buy it. It's amazing.
There you go. Thank you, Ward. We appreciate it. So, I guess with this conversation that you appreciate whenever AAA either works with indies or buys indies to help them. What was the example that you were talking about off before the stream of a indie company or a AAA company that does it well?
Square.
Yeah, the Square
Enix
Collective.
has the
Yeah.
Square Collective,
Okay.
where they will fund you.
Right. That's how they ended up with Ghostline Tokyo, which blew up at E3 when their creative director had her speech.
And a couple big games.
There were a few like games they announced for that collective. There's also I just realized ID at Xbox also.
Mm.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, ideas of that. Yeah, that's
And
right.
now they just actually buy indie devs.
Now they just buy it.
Yeah.
Double
Buy
Fine
'em.
used to support indie devs, and then Double Fine got bought by
Right,
Microsoft. So
Yeah.
I feel like that will create a nice little ecosystem.
That's true. Yeah, because what in the past year, the Microsoft added 15 indie studios,
Mhm.
which is just incredible. Yeah, they really made it a priority since Phil got that promotion up
And not that they were AAA, but Ninja Theory
Mm-hmm.
strategically got their independence back to make Hellblade to
Yeah.
then get rebought by Microsoft. So
Right,
clearly there's something in that world of
Yeah.
indie to being under a publisher that has some pros to it.
I was reading like it was probably 2 months ago now, but like the auto chess fad. I'm sure you guys know about it. It's like Plants vs Zombies, but with a different coat of paint. But like Valve, there was a mod for Valve's game, so Valve brought the devs from China to talk to Valve, because Valve normally just consumes like Pac-Man indie teams to make games, and like Portal 2 was like an indie project, or Portal 1 was an indie project that they ate, and so was like Counter-Strike, and like a ton, most of what they've released since Half-Life 2 was that. So they offered to hire them, and then the team was confident enough that they're like, no, like we're gonna make our own and we're gonna release it. So they shook hands, and then promptly like Valve releases their own copy immediately afterwards, doing that thing. And then now it's like Riot's first game since League that's been successful is Riot's Auto Chess also, which is like them mimicking the indie team. But it's usually like big companies are so not glacial, but like it's hard for them to navigate that they have to look at other indie teams and then make the product they're doing faster. That's what PUBG is, right?
Mhm.
Like PUBG is the battle royale, is the DayZ mod,
Right.
just done better.
Mm.
Yeah, it seems like it's really hard for such a large company to create a product on its own without like a weird experimental team sort of doing it first.
Cool. To your point, Eric Kwame said that she was awesome at E3.
Yeah. She was. I saw the conference.
Yeah, that's
I
cool.
didn't watch the conference, I've only seen the memes. That's my only point of reference for that.
The most amazing one is that, was it Crypt of the Necrodancer, the Hyrule Cadence of
right,
Hyrule,
yeah,
where you have
yeah.
like a dancing
Is
Zelda.
that, did Nintendo come to them? Did they come to Nintendo? Like, do
I
you know?
think
about that?
Nintendo went to them.
Except that Nintendo doesn't open up their franchises to anyone.
Yeah.
I could entirely be wrong. If anybody actually knows about this, please.
Is Dynasty Warriors indie? Probably not. Yeah, I'm always curious when Nintendo has crossovers with other developers, like how that happens.
Yeah,
You might never know.
probably not. Let's see. So, another trend, what I'm really trying to question here, the graphics versus gameplay mindset that a lot of devs have. Does that have a place as a cinematic genre of games, or should gameplay always come first? So, the cinematics of games versus gameplay. You know, we have seen some games try to have one theory over another. What are your thoughts on that?
I think we know where we usually fall as designers, right? Like we are almost always gameplay first,
Right.
and then everything else is sort of like has to build on that. Whereas other studios like David Cage Games is a good example of like that's totally story and cinematography first, and the game is like
Somewhere.
it's over there somewhere. Like yeah, I'll be back in 5 minutes.
But I always think of, like David Cage is a good example because it's like, why not just make a movie or do like what Netflix did with Black Mirror?
Oh, sure.
You get something like his game. I guess we were saying this before, but like I don't like like cinema games. I kind of don't ever like playing them, but I'm so glad they exist. Like I love the diversity and like I like playing them when they're funny to laugh at them, but like I like games have the unique ability to be either. Like having like Bandersnatch is sort of like it's a choose your own adventure movie, but like a movie could never do as much as a game could. It can't do a Minecraft, you know. Whereas like games
Right.
could go either way.
Right. The thing with games is that there's interactivity that you add to it, and that's helps for immersion and being able to tell really weird stories in a weird way that hasn't been done before. And I think that's the main reason I became a game developer, at least, was to try and like ride that wave of what weird thing can I tell while also having like interesting gameplay attached with it to create like an immersive experience.
I mean, I love games too that don't even try and tell a story.
Yeah, like those games are also great.
Technically, Factorio has a story, a premise, but like Factorio is just like building a microchip. Like it's just a system game, but like having that alongside like a Soma or something like, it's great.
I wonder if it's like your age, because I feel like graphics and story were like the carrot dangled, like suffering through Atari games that most of them sucked, and like NES games are like. I remember when you first got to like full motion video games, where like you play a crappy 8-bit game, and then all of a sudden you get this like beautiful video, or like Wing Commander 4 that's like a mediocre space sim, and then you get Mark Hamill talking to like a stuffed animal lion, like space, like that was like we've arrived, like this drama.
It's probably a mix of because like I didn't play games when graphics were like Final Fantasy would have pre-rendered cut. I played after that, but also like it was just the games that I ran into. I think like my formative game was probably Animal Crossing, which like it came out in the age of like and HD graphics, right? Like Blu-rays are gonna happen, but it's just not that. It just total left turn into like what do you do? Like I don't know, pay off your debts if you want.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever cared about, like, I don't need, like, the highest quality graphics, but I've always latched on to art style, like something that's stylized a little more. Like, things like I remember the whole, like, Legend of Zelda Wind Waker controversy, where people were like, oh, no, this art style is not Zelda at all. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. The cell shading, I loved the cell shading. I loved all the artwork for it. It was incredible. I latched onto that really well. And then I look at sometimes I look at some of these like really high quality AAA games and I'm unimpressed because I want to see something different.
But I do love like Resident Evil 2, having played the original and then seeing the like cinematic AAA pass over it, like it makes everything so much better. Like the gameplay they tuned, it's amazing. The cinematics are actually like terrifying, and like all of that combined together, just the game is. Remembering how scared I was with like the really bad PS1 graphics to now, like it's so good.
It's like movies, where like multiple people can play multiple games for different reasons. Whereas like if someone told you like, oh, I only play games or I only watch movies to be scared, it'd be like a crazy person. Like Indiana Jones or like Space Out, like anything else. Like no, just to be scared. That's the only reason. Or like you can play, like, Resident Evil 2 looked great in the remake, and I played it because, like, wow, that looks awesome. I want to see that world, and it's beautiful. And I'll play, like, Space Base, which looks like garbage. It's really bad.
What's sad is when you have someone make that decision and they're not good at it. Like the Council, which is like this 5-part episodic game that Focus put out of like, I think it's like in like the Ben Franklin era where there's like this murder intrigue mystery and it's supposed to be like a Telltale game, but like all of it falls flat and there's no gameplay. It's only cinematic, but the cinematics aren't good. So you're just left with like, oh, I'm so sorry.
Where they have an ugly game, like, the most important thing here is graphics.
Yeah, they were like, the performances matter. And you're like, oh no, the performances are bad. Or you play like a 2D, you play like a Mario knockoff, and you're like, ooh, it doesn't control well, but there's no story.
Yeah.
And it looks like it's from like the N64 era. That's the most unfortunate to me.
See, Danielle, talking about the Nintendo collaboration, she says, I thought that was an interesting collab because, like you said, Nintendo's pretty locked down, especially with something like Zelda. And then in terms of graphics, hyper-realistic graphics in games hit some type of uncanny valley vibes for her, especially with the current trend of using celeb likenesses like Death Stranding and Cyberpunk 2077.
Am I a sucker? Like, the famous people being in Death Stranding, for me, is like, ooh.
I like seeing Northern
Yeah,
Greece
like,
in Death Stranding. I was all for that.
Those trailers are so weird.
Yeah, I love how weird they are.
When I watched the Cyberpunk trailer, I saw Keanu Reeves. I was like, yeah.
And then you're like, wait, why do I feel this way? Like, I don't care. You know.
And that goes back to that like director-driven games. Like I play like The Evil Within because I love that creator.
Oh, Tear games?
Yeah, well, I'm like, the game could be terrible, but I just love that like he gets to see his vision through. Same thing with Death Stranding. I want to play. It could be terrible. It could be nonsense, but I just like that he gets.
It looks more nonsense than.
He gets his shot at what he wants to make.
There's like, maybe there will be a game that isn't this, but there's always, the better your graphics are, the worse your gameplay will be, right? Like,
Say that one more time.
the better a game looks, the worse the gameplay will be. That's always the case. Like, games that look really good, like the environment's beautiful, like they have to stop you from going somewhere. Because like it takes so much effort to make stuff that impressive, and you're gonna have to gate some of it in like interactivity, and you can't break it and stuff.
Right.
And like, even in like I think like Skyrim as an example of like when it came out, it was so beautiful. Like, oh my god, you can go anywhere. It's a beautiful game where you can travel anywhere. But if you look at Skyrim, like when you're climbing a mountain face, that kind of looks not great. It's like ugly rocks, and it's not impressive. So like, there's always a trade-off. And usually, like when I buy a game, it's either like I'm a sucker for the graphics, so I buy it because like it's pretty, or like it's somewhere between where like if it's too ugly, I can't play it. But if it's not gameplay novel enough, it's like boring to me. But yeah, I don't know. Do you guys feel like you lean one way or the other when you buy games?
Going to your Skyrim example, I mean, I personally don't enjoy Skyrim, and I was not a fan of how it looked at the time, and I still am not. And it is. This is what everybody screams at me at all the
You
time.
need to play Morrowind. Morrowind is the base foundation.
I've been told I need to play Morrowind. I don't know. I'm not that big on. I'm honestly not that big on open world. That's a discussion for another time.
See, Kwame says that he prefers the non-likeness new character models over the celebs. He's like, except Keanu Reeves though, because I mean, come on.
How can you not like Keanu?
Right.
The Avengers game where like they were too afraid to get the likeness or something, but they look almost like
they don't
the
have money,
actor,
yeah.
but yeah.
There was a Lord of the Rings one that was like hilarious, where it was like, you know, like Elijah Wood, like, oh god, we didn't pay for his likeness. And just drag the nose. Yeah, it was slightly different. Yeah.
Let's see. Where are we? We did the DLC. Okay, so we have every stream we get some all types of questions. So thank you for all the questions. Bloxycon asks, it's a slight digression. Is there anything you plan to do with the Toontown Online IP, like a new game, or maybe just putting Flippy in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate?
Okay.
Maybe
Call Nintendo.
perhaps some of the cogs could get into, and would Disney agree to it? So I am glad, I'll take this question. I am glad that you mentioned Disney because Toontown is owned by Disney. We were one of the developers that helped with Toontown whenever Jesse Schell, our CEO, worked for Disney. He was the creative director for it. And so Schell Games is a completely separate entity from Disney. And so anything that goes on with the Toontown IP would ultimately be a Disney decision. If they want to come to Schell Games and ask for our help or put a bid out for us to work on it, I think the studio would be happy to do it depending on the opportunities and where the studio is at that time. But as of there being any plans for us to do anything with it, that we can't answer that question. That we're not in the position to answer that question. It would be cool to see one of those characters in Super Smash, though.
Jesse and Joey did have a discussion about like years down the line, like being able to pitch doing like a Toontown 2 to Disney, but there's nothing actually in the pipeline for that.
Right.
Yeah, for the team of Disney executives that are watching this show, excitedly waiting for us to confirm our involvement.
Yeah, that's right.
Toontown
They just had that
I don't want to do it.
It's okay, we're sorry.
Somebody call Jesse.
Yeah.
Personally, like I didn't play it because I was too young at the time. Like I would love to work on that if we had the chance.
I started playing it now, the Toontown rewritten, now because I live with Joey, who's the creative director.
Is it like the modded one? So is it,
Yeah, so it's basically like the spiritual successor. They got
Oh.
they made their own servers. Like the base game is still there, but they have to do like all they can to just make sure that Disney doesn't
Disney
sue them.
Pontoon rerun.
Kwame doesn't like Skyrim either.
Oh my God, Kwame.
That's why you gotta play more with everybody.
And he says the combat is poop.
Yes. It's
Yes.
awful.
I just remember when people were like, "This game's amazing! Like the graphics are incredible." And I saw like a fellow tester playing it, and it was the same thing. He was going up a mountain, and it looked like the character was like bunny hopping, and I was like, "That's the animation."
Like Skyrim benefits from like it doesn't the highest it reaches isn't ever that high in terms of graphics quality, but it has a pretty high bar uniformly. Like everywhere it looks pretty okay. For when it came out, it looks all pretty good, right? So like if you open world travel to any random point, you get about like normal game quality, which was mind blowing for me at the time. Because like Oblivion, if you go in the woods, Oblivion looks like crap.
Yeah.
Right. There'd be like it's a displacement service and some grass. Right. But I love the franchise, so I'm massively biased.
Name Namen Kusjin.
Namekusai. I don't know how to pronounce that.
You want to censor that?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we don't know. If it was, my apologies. But yeah, that's right. You got me. Yeah, combat in Skyrim is up to you. Feedback is just a health bar. He says, or they say that they don't mind. That said, they are hyped for Until You Fall. Make sure you join the Discord so you can keep up with its updates. But that's awesome. Yeah, we're pretty hyped for Until You Fall as well. So
Man, I'm so salty. Like I got in the alpha.
yeah,
I got
yeah.
in the alpha, so I wanted to play. And
Oh yeah, that's right.
yeah, it's super embarrassing. Like I play VR games a lot, and I like hit my windowsill super hard with my controller. My hand got all messed up, and it was like black and blue, but it's fine. And then when I got the beta, I couldn't play it because apparently I destroyed my controller's internals. So
Oh, no.
The stick doesn't work anymore. So like that's how you move around is this one stick. And the other games I play are just standing in one spot, flailing. So like I can do them fine now, but it sucks. I have to talk to Oculus to get a new controller. I'm as excited as you are.
Oculus, if you are watching,
Yeah.
Tyler
Tyler
needs a new
needs a new
I would love a
controller.
new personal. And I'll have one new Oculus controller, the one on top, and
Oh,
one on
yeah.
the underside.
That's right,
The
that's
hybrid
right.
controller.
Some hybrid action there. Yeah, I mean, Until You Fall, just in the Discord, there's just been so many
We've
positive
had a lot of good feedback.
reviews.
I say we like I'm on the dev team. I'm not. I just read all the feedback.
But no, yeah, that's yeah, we're excited. August 27th is quickly approaching, so that's,
Hope you got it on your Steam wish list, because
that's right. Wish list it now.
Yeah.
Well, maybe after the stream you can go and wish list it. But yeah, so let's see here. We are. Yeah, so I mean, speaking about VR, we see many new headsets coming out in some that are supporting Windows mixed reality. Like I'm still seeing really positive reviews for that HP Reverb. That seems to be going on for the window with mixed reality folks. But then the studio's super excited about the Quest of how that adoption rate seems to be going pretty strong, and those other headsets, the Index, which I think is out, or at least they had some orders.
Yeah,
it's out. Yeah,
Yeah, I want to say
it's out for like $1,000.
Yeah.
So it's unreasonably expensive, and
Right.
I can't buy one, but it's out.
And then rumors of the Cosmos,
Right.
the Vive's untethered.
Oh.
So that should be interesting.
It's enterprise only right now, right?
I don't know.
I think one of theirs is, yeah. It's not for consumer.
I think there's the Vive Focus, which is consumer or enterprise only. I think, but there's so many, so you very well could be right. But so what are your one? I mean, how? Because I know we're part of the VR enthusiast Slack channel inside Schell Games, so you know what our attitude is towards VR. But I don't know about what your guys. What do you think about VR in gaming? Do you think it's going soon to take off into the mass gaming audience, or do you think it's going to continue to be niche? What are you guys' thoughts?
So yeah, I didn't have a lot of experience with VR
Sure.
before I came to Schell, which was really cool because the only I played like very few VR games because I don't own a headset. Once I played I Expect You to Die and Until You Fall, I started seeing there could really be an audience for VR headsets. I think the big hurdle is understanding what makes good VR design, and that's been the big problem ever since. That's usually the problem with new technologies. How do you make games for it? What would the best games on this system look like? And I think now it's starting to be solidified with games like I Expect You to Die or Until You Fall, where that design is slowly starting to become a formula of sorts. Not really formula's a bad word because that means everybody's going to be following the same trend, but we're starting to see what games work and what don't work, and that the games that do work are completely unique experiences than playing on a console or a PC. And I think as the technology continues to evolve and hopefully becomes more commercially acceptable, I think there's a place for virtual reality in the games industry.
And the metaphor I always use is you guys probably remember Super Mario 64 came out, and before that was Bubsy, right?
Right.
And when that came out, this is how you make those. Yeah, okay, we got it now. And then they just copied that, right?
Yeah.
But we haven't. I was 7 when I was really young, so I wasn't aware enough to follow it. But I'm curious, when Super Mario came out, was the reaction immediate? Like that's how you do it, or was it yeah, it's pretty good, I guess, and then slowly it built to be acclaimed, and maybe there's a VR game now that is successful, but not that much that will be seen as the progenitor of the new style of VR, or maybe we haven't had Mario 64 yet. Maybe someone's gonna make that game that's gonna be oh, okay, wow, that's how you do VR.
It's basically we're looking for a killer app at this point.
Yeah,
And that'll be what launches VR further.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's exciting. By the way, that I try to follow all the releases. One of these is going to be it, but
People thought Beat Saber would be it
yeah, I mean,
a little bit.
it is in sales, but
It is in sales.
do I play it too much to have an I play a lot, so now it's bland and boring to me. Oh, I remember playing Beat Saber. Maybe that is the success. It just feels like DDR though. It's really fun.
Mhm.
I have 60 hours in it. I love Beat Saber.
like it's the point where it's,
Yeah, it's not like okay, got it. It's like Guitar Hero, but you can source.
Yeah.
It's like not mind blowing like some other games.
like the 64 example where it was just completely ahead of its time.
Yeah.
So yeah, like if and when that killer app sort of takes off, I think that's when, people are gonna start buying VR headsets, and it's gonna change the market.
Yeah.
Still think it's a value proposition. Like, so I just pre-ordered my Nintendo Switch Lite, and so like for $200 I get a Switch, which covers like most of my console needs, and then the Quest I think is $399. So like a Switch-like VR experience with games that can't quite hit like the level of depth the Switch game. Like it's still, you're looking at like $200 more. I think they're trending in the right direction, but again, it's that like, I felt that way with a lot of like Robo Recall, or like, and when they announced Doom VR, like why would I give up movement to be in VR? I'm like, I'd rather just play on a 4K TV.
There's so much like weird, like when you see they're like, oh, like these games are gonna be popular, and there's so many weird differences where like you can't really watch someone playing VR easily. It's kind of awkward and sucks.
Right.
And there's only like streamers you can watch, right?
Mhm.
And you can't like share it easily because the headset's sweaty and disgusting, right? And your glasses scratch it up, or someone else's glass, and like you can't watch someone play and get the neural empathy because you can't see their face. You don't know if they're enjoying it. Like there's no way to know.
Yeah.
So you lose a lot of the stuff that normal games would get that make them, that are just totally like obvious to us now, right? So like the stuff that will make VR good might not, like it might be physical, like body movement, like Beat Saber might have that advantage and we're not noticing it. We're like, you can see what they're doing physically really well. Whereas like shooters, there's some really big examples, but I've seen VR games where you play this exciting, awesome thing and you're like not doing too much, and in your mind it's awesome, but like as a spectator it sucks. It's really weird.
Yeah, like that racquetball game looked amazing. Where like visually,
The
like
squash one, or
yeah, the like,
oh,
was it,
that
like
one.
Racket NX or
What's that? Yeah, is it just Racket and X?
something like that.
What's that real game? Wealthy people do it in a glass cube.
Squash.
Squash.
Squash,
Is it
racquetball,
squash?
yeah.
How do you do that? Is it two people and you hit the ball and then it transfers teams?
You hit and then the next person hits, and then there's like a line you have to hit beyond, and then like I think you get one bounce in squash. Racquetball can bounce multiple times, but yeah, there's
Yeah, because in racquetball too, like you can play off the side, which I
Yeah.
think squash you
squash
can't.
is more restrictive.
Yeah.
Something Jesse said a while ago that were like games are like, there's certain games like horse racing. Like you can only be a fan of a game at a higher level if it's something that you can understand. And when people used to ride horses often, when you see horse racing, you're like, yeah, like he's going fast on the horse. But, like I've never been near a horse, so like I don't have the empathy for doing that sort of. And like, so that racket game, I like don't understand what's happening at all because I don't. A lot of people have the real world understanding of that game. I think they bring to it. That was really interesting. When we brought it up in a meeting the other day, it was like mind blowing to me. And everyone was like, oh yeah, it's like that sport. Like, what are they doing? Why are there two people in the same room? Just why are they hitting each other? Like that makes sense, right?
Right. Even just that as like a visual like 2D image was like meh, like it was pretty bare bones, like a 90s music video, like but knowing that in headset, I'm like that sounds awesome.
Yeah, the other issue of like in sword fighting games when you're dueling someone, two people, one behind you and one in front, it feels awesome. But then from like a spectator, you're just like, there's no way to convey how cool it is because your body's doing all of it. Like,
Mhm.
yeah.
You see, I think Until You Fall does a good job of that because I saw a couple of streams. And it's like, I mean, you're rewarded for the wider swings, so you actually do get to see these streamers are like really like getting into it, like slashing around.
Yeah, you also have like DDR has a thing where like when you watch DDR and you see the arrows, even if you can't see the player, you know kind of what they're doing. You hear the rhythm and imagine their feet. And like Until You Fall, like I play a lot of Until You Fall and Blade and Sorcery, and I like both a lot. Blade and Sorcery, you can't, when I watch someone else play, I have no idea what's happening because like there's just stuff coming from off screen. It's all weird. And Until You Fall, even if I don't really know what he's doing, I can see the premonitions and sort of like see how he's blocking just because they're sort of choreographed in a different way.
Right.
Yeah. It's weird how, like in my mind, that would make it less watchable because he's not swinging a sword, but then you forget like, oh, I'm not in his body, so I don't know he's swinging a sword, so I need the premonitions to understand what he's doing.
Right.
So it's so, yeah,
I
mind
also
bending.
love. I feel like everyone's like gearing for like Twitch gamer in VR, and I like Spectre, or I Expect You to Die, and would love. So I would love to take it like one step further and like an old adventure game or like a police procedural where like if you were solving like a murder and had to like pick up objects and look and like something very
Oh,
methodical.
that's so good. We should do two-player co-op.
It'd be
Good cop,
amazing,
bad
yeah.
cop VR game. Oh man.
So, what was it? It was Unite, a conference for Unity developers for the Unity game engine. Tyler and I went down to Austin to show I Expect You to Die, and there was this location-based entertainment company. Do you remember this? They came up to us and was like, well, we're turning these boxcars into,
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
They were like deployable escape rooms. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so like we would love to use I Expect You to Die as a test model. And like, could you imagine like having I Expect You to Die in a real location-based experience? And so like you're in VR, but the objects that you're picking up are tangible.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
I still think of like a Resident Evil game in VR where like you have to bar the door, or someone has to like, that would be terrifying.
That would be terrifying.
I can't remember the video. There's some like YouTube video essays that talks about this, but it's like the things that VR offers were like you have a door in a game, you hit a button and it opens, right? Or you maybe can like open it slow or kick it if you double tap. And like in VR, you can like open it, or you can jiggle it or knock it down, or you can like knock on it, or bend down, look to the keyhole, or stick something in the keyhole and jiggle it, or like look backwards to the people and see the shadow. And it's like so much weird, like there's so many interactions to cover that, like the real world tangibility stuff will help with that, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't imagine, because I like, every time I think like, oh yeah, VR is going like this, I mean, people on a stage doing some competitive, awesome physical thing. And like now because of the Quest, it's like the guy that goes camping and is in the woods with a headset on. Like totally alone, and it's just not what I expected from that. Like it's not gonna be something that I imagine, right?
Yeah.
VR under a waterfall.
Yeah.
I'm training.
Yeah. I love how the Quest feels, like no cables, like it is night and day. It feels so good.
Yeah, that's been my main thing with.
I still haven't
VR
played on it
shells.
yet.
So
I need to play on it.
It's the problem. Like I hate stepping on my cable and standing up. Like I dump and step on my cable and pull on my headset. So like all the games that I play for VR are not on Quest yet, except for Beat Saber. Right? Like once they're ported, then I'm getting it for sure.
Right, like I know I'm bothered when I play Until You Fall and I swing and the wires starting to wrap around my arm. I'm like, ugh.
Yeah, I playing fighting games. I noticed, like, I guess it's because I'm right-handed, but like I don't play many fighting games. But when I play for a long time in my room scale, my cable gets really twisted, and it's because like when I'm in an engagement, automatically I forget which side. I think I favor the right side. I always circle to the right because it's like if I'm going to swing, I'm going to come from the right. So eventually, I circle my room. And I knock my waist like 20 times, and my cable gets shorter and shorter, and I think that's it off, and it's like wound up against the side. But it's like I have to try and play like, okay, well I must have spun like 20 times now. I gotta start circling the other way and like try and switch my hands and like walk in the clockwise direction.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but I'm weirdly excited to try the VR Labo Captain Toad.
Oh.
Just because the game is so amazing, and like that is like a little treasure box like experience.
We spend so much time like optimizing for Quest, right? And it's like it's so difficult, and we're like tearing stuff that we made with our parent, like destroy it and make it run, and then like seeing the specs that runs at, and then seeing what the poor devs for the Switch have to work with, like oh my god, I feel so bad for people that have to port to that. Like it must be so difficult. That's scary.
Right.
Yeah. I know.
We have. Oh, that's a good question. Okay, so we have two questions with two comments with Until You Fall. First one from Becky. FYI, if you want to have microtransactions in Until You Fall for MJ sequin gloves, I'm in. That sounds amazing.
My God.
I pitched to the I Expect You to Die team that one way that we can try to incentivize more in-app game purchases of customizing gloves. I think that would be absolutely brilliant. So you're a super spy. Why can't I have super gloves that I want? So I want black gloves, but whenever I look at them, there are dragons on them, and I would feel amazing.
I want 2 Infinity Gauntlets.
Yeah, that's right.
If you snap, you just uninstall your game.
Yeah. Crashes.
It just erases all your save data.
It's clearing your whole drive.
Actually, no, it's only half.
Have your drive.
Half your drive.
We
Right.
get away with like Muppet hands, and one has like a stick on it. So
Puppet, yeah.
Oh my God.
So for a Jam Week, I really wanted to try a while ago. I never came to fruition, but I want to do a game where one person uses a controller to control the face of a character, right? All the faces, and someone else has to be the hand. To do something. So like sort of like that Who's Line game. Where
Right.
You put
Yeah.
yeah. Like but do it remotely, where like there's a camera somewhere, and then there's a third party that has to like rate them for believability or whatever. Like I think it'd be so fun.
That would be
Oh my
cool.
God, that sounds like it would be really
Yeah.
cool.
Let's see. Did we look up if this was a swear word or not? I'm going to say it again. Nami Kustjans asks, can you make the combat markers or the premonitions in Until You Fall optional for some hard mode? So
Aren't they?
that is a good question, and we already got that feedback from a couple of the content creators who want the game to be harder than it already is. So the team is discussing that option. I don't have a yay or nay for you,
None of
but
us are on the Until You Fall
yeah.
team.
and so yeah, if you want, if you can go to the Discord and put that in the if you're not part of those channels. Hi, Mike.
You're ready to come back.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. If you want to make sure that your voice is heard about that, the game is going into early access, so we are still actively getting feedback from the community, and so yeah, we appreciate that comment. Warren asks, I guess I'm curious at what each person's favorite VR game or experience is at the moment. Mike, there's a chair too if you want to bring it. Come on in.
join in.
We're going to do rapid fire in a couple minutes.
Oh, okay.
So you can jump on in on that. But yeah, so favorite VR game at the moment.
I think we should say not our game.
Okay, that is not a Schell Games experience
Stole
because
my
Until You Fall is
Yeah,
up
I
there.
don't
Yeah.
I was gonna say latest level.
Oh, from Dragon Ball.
Got it. The Dragon Ball character.
Oh! Thank you.
I'm gonna have to go with water bears.
It's not a Schell Games.
Not Schell.
Ah, Schell Games.
I don't have. I'm all Schell. I only do Schell games.
Schell Games till I die.
And other than that, I'm 2D.
Okay, so you're interested
Living
in
room
Water
too.
Bears VR?
I mean, it would be like, have you watched someone else play a game in VR that was like super cool? Because like a lot of VR, I think now is spectating. Like looking at YouTube and
That's
stuff,
true.
where like people that don't have headsets love to watch other people play.
I only watch your games.
Yeah.
Okay.
Eating the dog food.
Yeah.
I think for me, it's outside of Schell. It's called Don't Look Down. It's by Catapult VR. They're a recently new studio up in Troy, New York, where I go to school. I did a business incubator with them, so I met the devs and stuff, and I made good friends with them. But it's a VR climbing game. It's highly gamified, but it's so much fun.
Okay.
Like you really feel like if you're getting that sort of like Until You Fall workout by just like always reaching for things, and there's enemies you have to avoid. You might need to be like hanging by one hand, you have to throw stuff somewhere else. There's like some time trials in there too.
And they make for really good speedrunning games usually. It's so cool to see a guy like fly. But
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
like it's super fun to watch. It's super fun. It's even funner to play. Like I highly recommend. I'm pretty sure it's out. I think it's actually been released on itch.io.
Don't Look Down.
Don't Look Down. Yeah,
Okay.
I highly recommend it.
Okay, if we can scoot a little bit,
Yeah,
Mike
let's-
is
let's-
out of the camera.
Yeah.
And make sure your timer's on the picture.
Oh, I still have this.
crasher.
Okay.
It's crashing the
I
screen.
forgot I have this.
You good?
Oh, yeah.
Awesome.
Cool. All right.
Do you have a favorite VR?
Yeah, for me, that's not a Schell Games IP. I'm still a big fan of Super Hot VR. I think just the way their time mechanic is just so, their time speed mechanic is just so cool, and you just like again, like you feel so powerful. You the sense of agency you have to control your movements and to interact with the scene. I think is just so well done. Yeah, so yeah, I'm still a big fan of that.
Are you going to speedruns of that?
Yeah,
It's so good.
it's crazy.
Speedruns, oh my god.
They're wild.
Crazy.
Yeah.
And they know where everyone is ahead of time, so they do like the matrix, like, and they appear and they shoot them.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it's so good. I guess for me, like by playtime, it's probably Beat Saber, but I use it as an exercise. It's like it's cardio now. But I think like now probably Blade and Sorcery. I was playing it for a long time because there was a bug that was really fun that I found.
Oh, yeah, whenever you're floating.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like you could like stab someone and use them to fly like a broomstick.
What?
And you can fly around in the air, and then
You put it in the Slack channel if you
yeah,
want to see it.
I had something on Twitch. I'm like, their feet were still physics objects, I think. So you can like a witch,
Oh, no.
like fly by and it would kick people and they come flying. It was super good. But I think the dev removed that. I haven't found the update. But
That sounds like a feature, not a bug.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's bring it back.
That's absolutely a
I want my
feature.
Harry Potter mode.
Hashtag feedback, Harry Potter.
Yeah.
Harry Potter and zombies.
Yeah.
Favorite VR game?
Ooh, favorite.
That's not Schell Games Pro.
Not Schell Games. Well, I'm Michael Lee, by the way. I'm an engineer at Schell. I've been on the stream a few times, so I probably don't need to introduce myself too much.
You need no introduction.
I was going to say super hot, but
You can still say super
No,
hot.
no.
Yeah, they do that.
Actually, so
No one's allowed to have the same
there's two
favorite
games that I
title.
really love in VR, even though they're not just VR. It's there's Thumper. So Thumper is like really, it's just so intense, and the VR makes it even more
Mhm.
like it's such a tunnel. I mean, it's literally a tunnel vision game, right? Because it's like there's a single track, and it's like, and it gets, and the music and the effects all builds up, and when you're in VR, it's like it doubles that effect. So that's really, really intense and cool, and I love that. And then the other one I really, it's so silly that it's a VR game, but Tetris Effect,
Do you like Tetris? You like Thumper? You must, right?
yeah, Tetris Effect is like, it's, if you don't know, Tetris Effect is basically really pretty Tetris set to music. It's made by the guy who made Rez and Lumines, and man, in VR, it's sort of like you get that whole Tetris. It's named after that whole zoning out when you're playing Tetris, and it's just so cool in VR.
So when you play, do you feel like you get distracted from the Tetris by the stuff going on, or does the stuff like
It
draw
just
you?
draws you in more because all the environments are really set up like they're like these weird empty spaces, but it's very evocative. Like some of them are like actual rooms and like forests. Like there's a bamboo forest, and there's like an actual like Japanese Zen room. But then some of them are just weird spacey things, like you're flying around space dolphins and everything. But it's all very effective, and it's sort of ridiculous. I've never seen a VR game with so many particles. The game is nothing but particles. So
I wonder if they're rendered on like a texture, some efficient,
Yeah,
instead
no,
of like
yeah.
individual overdrawing.
again, I don't know if they're listening, but if you guys are, I'd love to see GDC talk on how you made Tetris Effect performance.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's a challenge.
Mhm.
All right, so we got a couple comments. Kwame likes Lone Echo, and Warren says, right on, super hot, nails the tone and embodiment so well. All right, so if you have any last minute questions, get them in. We're going to start wrapping up. Let's see. So we're going to do some rapid fire and some of our other questions. So just a sentence or two from everybody. Let's see. So we talked about subscription models. Cloud gaming. Are you excited about it? Curious about it? Ambivalent? Let's start with Tyler.
Villain.
Ambivalent?
Actually, no, I don't really care. I don't know.
Okay.
That's ambivalent.
Yeah, that's ambivalent. I'm excited about cloud gaming. I don't know who's going to be the first group that does it well. There's a lot of hype between Google Stadia, so I'm interested.
I personally don't like it. I do not want to have to play. I do not want to have to need an internet connection to play my single player games. And I'm always been a proponent of actually owning the disc or the cartridge instead of having to pay for a service that will let me play the games that I want constantly. I want to have the game and just own it.
Okay.
I'm very interested. I love the Xbox Games Pass, and the rumors they will have that, cloudified and ripped apart from Xbox, so you could put it on a different device, put it on a phone, put it on a Switch. That sounds amazing. The fact that they could stream Resident Evil 7 on the Switch sounded incredible. I just feel like more venues to play good games. I was in the beta for Assassin's Creed for Stadia, and it ran really well. It was super fun. And they Google-fied it where it was like a button, suddenly the game starts. It wasn't like sign in, then find the game. And yeah, it was super quick. So I just think it's another way to play good games.
I'm sort of like Tyler, ambivalent, but I also think it's inevitable. So I think probably 10 years from now, 90% of all games will probably be streamed, if I'm honest, because 90% of games probably don't need dedicated hardware to really run well. So
Once it's default, I'll use it, but until then, I don't care.
All right. Let's see. Besides, besides VR, or no, including VR, what new technology in gaming are you most excited about? Starting with Mike, we'll go the other way.
Ooh. I know people think it's sort of dying down, but I'm still excited about finding genuine new ways to use AR in games beyond just Pokemon Go style AR. I think there's a lot of potential because everyone has so many phones now. So I'm looking for someone to take the next step, and it's it's not just window dressing. They're gonna use AR for something truly meaningful. So still excited about AR.
I don't know. I think it's more like the ecosystem of development. I like hearing how Microsoft is taking several different approaches to the next generation. They're buddying up with Nintendo. You can now do crossplay across Sony. I think again the venue to play games however you want to, on the go or on a TV, whether you want you just need 720p or 8K or whatever. It just seems like the options are becoming, and the type of game you want to play. If I want to play King's Quest 1 and then jump to Uncharted, I can do that in a second. And that having that access to the history of gaming on any device is pretty awesome.
I don't really know about this one, honestly. Of course, VR is getting to the point where I get really excited talking about it. But seeing what games have done with AR is also something that I'm really interested in. I was a total fan of Pokemon Go when it came out, and I want to see more games integrating the real world in a certain capacity, because I think there is a lot of potential there. Mm-hmm. Keep Talking Nobody Explodes did something similar. Mm-hmm. Just AR-based games in general.
Kind of have two answers. Using the brand new technology like VR, AR in location-based experiences, I think, is going to be a thing, especially while the mass consumer adoption is still super slow, or slower than what people expect. And the other one is haptics. So in VR, if you're playing a boxing game and you get punched in the gut, is that really going, how that is going to make things more? I really want to get punched in the gut. No, so I think that's how crazy that happens, or where it goes with that would be super interesting, and also I think there's an ethics kind of question with that as well.
Where's my VR smell-o-vision?
That's right.
I guess for me, it's the facial simulacrum, or I don't know the better word is, but Facebook did experiments where they recreate a face.
Photorealistic.
Yeah. And it's essentially photorealistic people's faces as they talk in real time. And I don't not all games, but like a lot of games, even social ones, have this like inherent loneliness because they're so disconnected from the real person. And breaking through that with new tech is the most exciting thing. Like social elements of any game is always the best part for me. So yeah, I want to see that in a game.
So yeah, on the aspect of cloud gaming, Danielle says, I'm super excited for it. If it does what it promises, to someone that doesn't have a beefy gaming rig, it'll open the door for me to play a lot of games I don't get to play much, assuming it delivers on its promises. Interesting. All right, John, let's get a little bit more, well, not touchy, but we'll see. There's been a lot of negative stories about the workplace in the games industry. What are your thoughts on unionization? Yes or no? Or you get a couple sentences. I'll just throw you in a corner.
No, because I think the workplace is a bunch of people working. So as someone who has worked in toxic workplaces, like how you behave in that workplace can solve or contribute to the toxicity. So I feel like, for me, I put it on me, like as a producer, do people go home? Are they tired? Are they happy? Like I have agency in helping that. So I don't feel like I need an external thing to make me like a non-toxic worker. And it's my hope to like climb the ranks to make sure that as I'm higher up in a company that I make sure that people are cared for. So I think I have agency over having a healthy workplace. And I don't think I need like external factors. And having been at those companies, I have also tried to help people have healthier practices, and they were like, no, we just want to crunch because we really want this game to come out. So part of me is like, well, you chose to crunch. Like I know it's a huge, messy situation, but some of those people brought it upon themselves to. So it's hard to see it happen, but it sometimes becomes a choice. Like you have the choice to walk away. Sometimes people don't.
Okay, so go with Mike, and then we'll go around.
Oh, okay. Well, I think it really depends. Like sometimes you're lucky to work at studios like Schell, right? Where, I'll honestly 100% like the work-life balance here is amazing. And that's like one of the things when I'm talking with other colleagues in the game industry, it's like, yeah, we have reasonable hours, we go home, like we're the only people left in the studio right now. So I know for sure, because I was just out there. We were just finishing a playtest session. So, but, there are studios where, people do get, exploited by management and by other coworkers and just by cultural peer pressure at the studio. And that's always really terrible because, it burns people out. It burns good people out of the industry, and it makes the industry a worse place, both for developers, but also, frankly, just for everyone, because then you get less good games, less diverse games. And so I think a lot of the movements that are going on, like with Game Workers Unite and everything, I think that's really important, because some of those studios, they do that. They genuinely do need wake-up calls and people to help support each other in order to get fair labor practices. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm about an alignment. I don't think I fully understand what unionization would mean for our industry. Like, I don't feel any need for it here, right, with my job. But I have friends that work at studios like California, right, and like especially people in QA, it almost seems like a necessity for them. But then I only hear the horror stories. So, yeah, I'm not sure. Mixed answer. It seems necessary for some people, but like, I don't personally need it at all.
My answer would probably be the same as yours. Like I think whenever you hear all the horror stories, and I think too, it's really coming to light because people aren't too familiar of how games are developed. And so as games get more prevalent in society, people are able to, are getting interested in the curtain, or what's behind the curtain. And so they're seeing all these terrible things and all these crazy stories, but coming from the marketing agency world, a lot of the things that are going on in the games industry are the same things going on in the marketing and advertising industry when it comes to, sexism, when it comes to horrible work environments. So I think, it's not a new thing for a particular industry, but it's new because more people are realizing that's a thing that happens in games that are supposed to entertain and be fun for people. So whenever there's that dichotomy, that a lot of people are interested in that. So I probably believe that it's needed, but I don't know how it would be effective.
I'm probably the worst person to really answer this because I've worked in the game industry all of 2 months. I'm just an intern, so I'm still in
You're
school.
not just an intern. You are an intern.
But I did go to GDC and I attended like a round table about like unionization and what that would kind of look like, just because I was just out of sheer curiosity. So I'm really, I don't want to say I'm indifferent on it because like in some ways I think it will really help, but in other ways I'm not entirely sure how they're going about it. So I think my answer is mostly I'm uninformed on this to really give a helpful answer on this.
Sure.
And I do want to jump in because what Dwayne was saying, it's like, I think the fact that these conversations are happening and people are speaking out on Twitter and Facebook and other places online, that's like, and at GDC, the fact that there's a roundtable this year about studios talking about unionization, like, or people think like different unions even gave presentations of like how they handle different industries and such. But it is hard, right? Because games, it's like a mix of engineering and of entertainment, right? And entertainment, they have like a lot of strong history of guilds and unions, and for better or for worse, engineering and software development have not. And the fact that I think it's cool that people are talking about it, not just not just developers. It's hitting like mainstream news organizations and everything.
There's a bunch of stories coming out, like the Activision one that came out like what was that, a month and a half ago?
Yeah.
Of like
That was crazy.
their like QA team being treated like less than like everybody else.
That is more common than not.
There's definitely more places that do that. It's just that was the big one that came out.
I'm most excited. Yeah, I think the exposure is more important. I like that people are like keep telling your story, keep exposing conditions, I think that will go a long way than having some like organization try to produce across the board policies. Because people will still find loopholes. They'll still find a way to grind out QA and
Like if something's going wrong, the last thing that you want to be is silent, right? So not to end on the down note, what in the next coming years are you most excited about in the games industry? And let's start with Eric.
What I'm most excited about in the games industry. First of all, really being able to dig into the games industry as a developer, but also I'm really excited to. This is a tough one. I'm so excited about a lot of things. It's hard for me to pinpoint one that I really want to talk about. I think it's just the constant push for new technology and like a lot of new games that are sort of breaking out of their old formulas to create new experiences for players to enjoy. I'm always excited about that, and the evolution of VR as it continues. Because I think next year might be another big year for VR, as more and more companies are really like making really interesting titles.
I guess we'll go this way. What I'm excited about is how games are being taken more seriously, and how games can really solve a lot of problems or challenges that society is tackling. So seeing serious institutions look at games for learning, games for education, games for social, emotional learning, games for teaching, I think is really, really cool. So I'm excited to see how that kind of games go more into our everyday lives to benefit how people live.
So my answer is going to be way more selfish than that. So I'm interested I'm excited most for until Evolve launch, because I've just been watching the team work super hard on it, and it's super fun. I want it to do really well. But if that's not, it might not be a fair answer because it's a Schell project.
Oh, that's a great answer.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a good answer.
My backup is with Cyberpunk because I'm a nerd for Cyberpunk stuff. So.
Cool.
In the same vein, I'm excited for all the really cool projects here at Schell. Until You Fall is going to be awesome. And outside of Schell, like there's two things. I'm excited for a game, Breath of the Wild 2. That's because I love Breath of the Wild. It's one of my favorite games of all time. So I'm really excited that they're making a sequel, a direct sequel even. And then I'm like interested. Maybe excited's not the right word. I'm really interested about where the future of digital storefronts is going to go, and like the Epic Game Store and itch.io and all this stuff. And not to get too controversial, but I think the Epic Game Store is causing a lot of disruption, right? So it'll be fun. It'll be fun to see what happens over the next year or so as that keeps on evolving between them and Steam. So
Cool.
My internal answers, we have a lot of good educational products coming up that I love working on, and they're so much fun. And yeah, I don't know. Again, I left the industry in San Francisco for the opportunity to do more educational products, so that's really exciting. And then as a kid of the 80s, I love console wars, so we're coming up on the next round. So
Oh yeah.
the PS5 and Microsoft Scarlet, I just love. They just throw numbers at each other. It doesn't really matter.
ray tracing.
Yeah, ray tracing, SSD. I love it. And then my favorite thing, like, so with ray tracing, is they have the demo of like Quake 2 with no changes to the code. They add ray tracing. It looks beautiful. So like the ability to up-res any game ever made is just, I don't know, I'm a sucker for pretty graphics.
Cool. Well, that's the end of the stream for July. Tune in next month. Next month we are actually going to do the week before, so the third week of August, because we are going to have some exciting announcements for the end of August. And so we'll continue to keep you updated with that. So the stream will be with the Until You Fall team on August 21st. It'll be a week out before the early access, so we're going to have a lot to talk about for next month. Thank goodness it's not next week, but next month, Dinner with the Devs. Make sure, please subscribe if you haven't already. Make sure you follow Schell Games on all of our social media, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, we're both Schell Games. LinkedIn, we're on Schell Games. Discord, or join our Until You Fall, discord.gg/Until You Fall, or you just look out Until You Fall Discord and we should come up. Thank you again for stopping by. Feel free to continue the conversation in our Discord and the off topic, and we'll see you there. So thanks for stopping by.
Bye.
See you.